Hi guys, I'm Mike and this is Simon.
And over the last 30 years, we've built over £100 million worth of property combined.
And welcome to the Property Developer Masterclass.
So we're on the Fairmile estate in Cobham, which is one of the best roads in the area. This is a highly desirable, incredibly popular road.
Private road?
It's a private road, yeah. It's one of my favourite houses that I've ever built. As you can see, it's quite a Mediterranean style, something really different. I wanted to do something really different here. I got a phone call one day to say that a house had become available on Icklingham Road, which I loved. And I drove down, saw it, and I knew that I had to buy this one. It's really special. So I've been involved in this right from the outset. I found the plot.
When you say found the plot, do you mean as in you were just walking around, or you were using software? How have you come across it?
No, so I work incredibly closely with all of the local estate agents.
Okay.
So I've been building around here for around 20 years, so I know most of the agents and I've got great relationships with them.
Didn't you started as a
start
agent?
I did start as a estate agent, yeah, about 20 years ago. Okay. It's a south backing plot, so the orientation is absolutely perfect.
From the design side, is that something you had quite a bit of involvement in, or was that the architect that you can't just let him run with kind of the design process?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to do something different. Cobham has a lot of different styles of houses, but a lot of them tend to be fairly similar.
More the Georgian and the Neo-Geo, or an arts and crafts style.
Yeah, your classic Neo-Georgian, which we built, which I love, but I really wanted to do something different here. I wanted to do something special. And I worked closely to design this house with the architect right from the outset.
Okay.
So we looked at the orientation, we worked out the best position for the house, we worked out where people would want to live, how they'd want to live.
Nice.
And it's really special inside. It's fantastic.
So this was an agent introduced site?
This was an agent introduced site, yeah.
How did you know what was a fair price? Because what an agent tells you and what the landowner wants is very different to what's actually worth to yourself. So how did you actually know, right, what you want to pay for it versus kind of what the GDV of the site would end up being?
Sure. So in the first instance, it's all about working out what size unit you can get on the plot, because that will dictate, hopefully, how much you're going to sell it for. So found the plot, was offered the plot, gave it straight to my architect. My architect's fantastic. I've worked with him for many years. He's extremely experienced at properties of this size and this value in this location. He then came back with a design that he felt would be acceptable in planning terms. And it's from there that we can work out what the eventual sale price would be.
Yeah, you probably got an idea in your mind beforehand, so again, it comes with a bit of experience, but you've looked at the plot and gone, I think we can get a 4-bed, 5-bed, 6-bed, and then give it to the architect for the more technical side to make sure it exactly fits on the.
Yeah, of course. So I've got a lot of experience at this end of the market. So I knew what type of number we'd need to hit in terms of GDV to make this deal work. That then reflects back to how much you can pay for the land.
Yeah.
So once we had that design, we then got to work looking at the comparables, making sure that you know exactly what sold in the road, how much they achieved, and that then gave us an idea as to what we believed our brand new house would be worth when it was built.
So with something like this, when you're looking at an off-market opportunity, what kind of margins would you be looking at to make it worthwhile for yourself?
Okay, so when we're looking at a speculative development, whether it's a house like this, or whether it's a block of apartments, or a development of multi-units, houses, you always look to get 27 to 30% pre-finance costs.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And then that can differ, again, depending on the funds you've got. I mean, auction properties, we're looking at before, or renovations. I don't know about yourself, but not normally for as quite a high margin. But yeah, definitely when it's an off market, it just gives you that bit of a buffer, doesn't it? By the time, you know better than anyone, once you're on site, so many factors. Building materials can increase, decrease your margin slightly. So you want to make sure you've got a bit of good enough buffer when you're actually starting on a project. So if anything does change on site, you're still covered.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So before I actually met Simon, I actually knew of this house. Didn't actually know of you, did I? But this is something that I remember seeing a picture of, literally had it saved, even down to the material choices, the white render and that natural stone split face cladding. It's then what I wanted to use on some of my own projects. So it's just funny that, something you built and designed is something that I've always used as a reference because I loved it that much for some of my own projects as well.
You should have bought it. So whilst I was building number 11, Icklingham Road, Audley House, I noticed that there was a large garden attached to one of the houses in the road. It was about an acre, covered in shrubs and plants.
I remember seeing that. I drove around this about 5 years ago with the missus. I just remember literally a massive overgrown plot.
That's right, yeah. So it was a jungle.
Yeah.
And it looked to me as though it had tremendous potential for redevelopment. So I knocked on the door one day and asked them if they'd want to sell their plot. And after about 2 months of negotiation, I agreed a 2-year option agreement on this plot.
So for those who don't know, effectively an option agreement is pretty much a contract, it's a legal binding contract which gives you the option to purchase that plot subject to planning.
Correct.
So it just safeguards from a developer's perspective. You're not paying up front for a bit of land that you may not get planning. You've obviously done your research, you knew realistically you're going to get planning on here. But for those who are looking at bits of land, they go, okay, am I going to justify spending a load of money up front with no guarantee? The option gives you that security where you can go, right, I'll get planning or a signable option, you then pass it on, but it's then effectively you can decide whether you want to purchase that plot for that price or walk away. So it's an option, it safeguards the developer.
Correct. So that's exactly right. And I knew that from experience and also speaking with my architect that we could design and secure consent here for 2 10,000 square foot mansions, which is exactly what you can see behind us today.
So that one you bid out, you didn't build these two, did you? You decided, get the plan in. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I didn't build these two. This was a fantastic deal for me. I secured a 2-year option. I secured the planning consent, and at the point of securing the planning consent, I decided to trade the land. So I sold the land with the benefit of the planning consent for these 2 10,000 square foot mansions.
Yeah. So that itself, that massively increases the value. So effectively that's a lot of the part of what we call land sourcing, which is a massive part of the business model, isn't it? De-risks it from a developer side. So effectively you're taking your margin between what you agreed to purchase the plot to the vendor versus what you sell it to a developer, that's your margin. So effectively that de-risks from yourself, really, isn't it? Your risk was spending the money on getting the planning consent, but not building out.
There were legal fees and planning costs. So my lawyer's fees, the vendor's lawyer's fees, which I covered.
Yeah, so that's part of it normally, to de-risk it for the vendor, isn't it? To make it as easy for them.
That's right.
You often offer to pay their fees.
So we paid their fees for them because we were taking the risk and we had approached them directly. So it was the legal fees and the planning costs. Yeah. And at the point that planning was granted, I realised there was a fantastic opportunity to exit this deal completely without putting a spade in the ground and without having to build these 2 homes. And then I sold the land to another developer and he built what you can see here today.
So that's part of the model that we can kind of advise on as well, is that is a big part of the business structure, isn't it? So you don't always have to build the projects out because obviously with that comes the big risk, the market, raising the finance. This is, like you say, legal costs, planning fees. You can then exit with a decent margin just from that. And in itself, we know people, that is their entire business model, is just obtaining the planning, passing it on to the developer, and that's how they make their money.
Correct, and that's what we specialise in as well. I specialise in securing options on land and then selling them on, trading them as we call it, onto other developers. On this particular deal, we made a few £100,000 on the trade, so it was a really, really lucrative deal. We're now in Oxshott. These are 2 homes that I built speculatively 7 years ago. Come follow me for a tour. Marble floors throughout, stepped architrave, step skirting, really went for attention to detail on this. Used an interior design firm called Hill House, worked with them right from the very beginning to design all of the interiors. Come and have a look. Have a look at the lounge. Ah, there's Mike. This is a really special kitchen, bespoke, hand-built cabinetry with really lovely lights around the units. Natural marble top, wine cooler. Everything was really special. We made sure that the colour palette flowed all the way through this house. It was a real passion project of mine. We did exactly the same next door in a way to keep the costs down.
So you got an induction hob?
Yep.
Tractor above?
Yep.
Oh, cool. What's that then?
That is a plug socket.
Nice. So it's these type of attention to detail that, if you give that extra time at the pre-construction, look over all of the aspects, these are the things that sell the house. The lighting, the appliances, the attention to detail makes it a different standard to other houses.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all about getting the mechanical and electrical right early on. So that's what we refer to as the M and the E. And that happens before you even put a spade in the ground. So we knew before we even started building these houses exactly where every single plug socket, every light switch and every light was going to go.
Is that something you do yourself, or do you get a consultant, an M&E consultant?
It depends on the size of the project and it depends what your budget is.
Yeah.
But on something like this, on a development like this, we use consultants. So we used specialist lighting consultant and obviously a mechanical and electrical consultant.
I just noticed the most important thing in the house.
Wine cooler.
Wine cooler.
Yeah, absolutely. Come and have a look at the garden.
So this was what, a plot beforehand, or a house that you've knocked down and got the two builds in its place? Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, so this was one house on a large plot. We got planning consent to build these two that you can see here. Mm-hmm. These are each about 5,000 square feet internal. Yeah. Both 5 beds, 4 baths. So really lucky with this one to manage to get 2 houses this substantial on a plot of this size.
Is this a plot direct to vendor, or is this introduced from an agent?
No, this came from a land agent,
okay.
And this was 7 years ago now. Yeah. So we're going back some time. Policies changed since then.
Planning easy enough? Did it go straight through for 2 houses?
Yeah, planning was straightforward. Yeah. It was easier back then, I think. There's more policy now. But it was a natural infill site on a nice wide plot, and so we knew exactly what we wanted to get, and we got it.
So with these two, did you build them yourself, get a construction company, or project manage them?
Yeah, so I self-built these,
okay,
and I project manage it myself. As I do with all of my projects, I project manage everything I build. But obviously when you're starting out, the chances are that if you've got a lender on board or an investor or a funder, they're going to want you to employ a full-time project manager. Now, either that can be encompassed within the construction company. Generally, you want somebody looking after your interests and project managing it on your behalf. But with these two, I'd already been building for nearly 15 years by the time I built these. So I did everything myself. So I managed all of the consultants, architect, the whole shebang, did it all myself.
So like Simon said there, he's got a lot of experience in it. You can manage those projects. For those starting out, it's going to be very difficult unless you're in the trade, in the industry already, to be able to project manage something. Yeah. Depending on, like say, the investment you've got, the facility, and the size and scale of the project, most likely you're going to need to get a construction company involved.
That's right.
What you can do, and something we can show you, is almost to be again, not an official project manager, but whether it's an admin project manager, you're making the decision in terms of finishing a spec project manager and get a fee out of that. So effectively you are getting a small salary as part of it, but you will most likely, unless you're an experienced developer, have to get a construction company and, like I say, a project manager as an interim between it. Yeah. Just to de-risk it. Effectively those funds that are going in, someone else is going to have to build it for you. But we can show you effectively how to source, just like this, off-market opportunities. Make sure you've got that margin in it. So whatever margin you're paying a construction company, you're still going to have enough margin in it to build out, or whether you sell them on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for joining us today on the Property Developer Masterclass.
If you want to learn more about property development, land sourcing, and how to make 6-figure sums through both, click the link below register your interest for free today.
Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next week. So where are we at the moment, mate? We're still in...
I'm going to hit you every time.
But that's how I
you do that,
naturally
I'm gonna
stand.
hit
The thing
you.
is, that's how I naturally stand. I don't stand like... This is when I used to work doors, that's why I stand like that.
Maybe I won't hit you.
Yeah.
100%.
Ah, cool. Love it.
Good idea.
Right, any issues with the build? Anything you wish you hadn't done or would do differently next time?
Yeah, fucking built in the first place.
Cool.
You weren't expecting me to be smiling at you, right?